Out with the old and in with nothing. Oh, yeah. I always forget how heavy those are. Whoa, yep, that's a problem. Yeah, that push rod is not supposed to look like that. So now I'll just have to strip off the rest of the accessories here. I do want to check the camshaft for, for science, because this push rod was broken in 2 places. And it's supposed to be, the letter I, like these ones, not the letter Z. So a little while ago, I made a somewhat controversial video talking about kind of what happens when you leave an engine in the elements with no antifreeze. So today, we are going to find out if this numbers matching original 350 that was sitting in my 69 Camaro, non-SS by the way, is actually garbage or not. So this thing has sat for about 40 years with no antifreeze in it. It is rusted completely shut. Now, there was a lot of people saying that I'm crazy and all these things, but what most of you don't know is that I ran tow truck for a number of years, and I've literally hauled hundreds, probably even close to 1,000 old cars out of fields. And every single time I pulled one that had the rad stolen, sold for scrap, or whatever, or there was no antifreeze in the vehicle, this is exactly what that engine looked like. So it might be pretty easy to say, you don't know anything, because that's what the internet's really good at doing. Just automatically saying everyone's crazy. But let me tell you for free that I know at least a couple things. Maybe not much, but a couple. Like, I can tell you why you shouldn't buy that beautiful 67 Camaro that's covered in Bondo, because this is what it's going to end up looking like. Not very nice. But let's tear this thing down and see if it's at least salvageable. I'm positive the cylinder heads are going to be junk, as that right there alone, and how rusty the valves and everything are, it is toast. But I am hoping that from the top of the block down, it's still usable. So at least that way I can still technically say I have the numbers matching 350 out of the car. And no one cares. I really should just LS swap it at this point or put a 454 in it, whatever. But I've really never had the opportunity to own an older car that's worth anything, at least, that has the original engine. And I think just because I'm, first timer, I really want to try and utilize this original engine. So hopefully, we're going to cross our fingers. It's going to work. So let's dig into this thing and see what we got. So we'll start with just taking some of the obvious stuff apart. I got some of this already sitting here. Just extra stuff that was on the engine. I kind of just have to, a little bit of spring cleaning, let's call it. Factory intake manifold is on there still. You still have the factory hookup point for your chain, so that made it easy pulling out of the car. Now, one of the very first things I want to do is fire up the old drill and pop this valve cover, because that's kind of going to give us a little bit of an idea on what we're looking, or what we're about to deal with here, for that matter. We blast that off, and we'll see what we got. Definitely not going to be doing anything with these valve covers after, that's for sure. Those are junk now. All right, moment of truth. Let's see what we got. Oh, that's actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Huh. Pretty rust-free in there, actually. I really thought this was going to be very ugly, and it's not. Pop the other side valve cover off. Again, this is not going to get reused at all. I will keep the nuts and the bolts and the pieces that hold down the valve covers, because it seems like you never know when you need one of those. Yeah, same thing. Oh, well. We got a rocker that's off. That is interesting. All right, seeing here, just barely getting into this engine, we've already got a loose rocker. I wonder if that was actually the death of this 69 Camaro and why it got put out to pasture. Now it just makes me want to tear into it even more, realistically. Mind you, as soon as we get the intake manifold off, we should know kind of what was going on in there. But yeah, that's not really a good sign. I mean, that could be a collapse lifter. It could be a wiped camshaft. That might have been the nail in the coffin for this car. Now we'll just quickly loosen all these manifold bolts off, and then we can pop them off with the impact. A couple are going to be tight, of course. No one's really surprised there. It's actually kind of the beauty of these old Chevys, right? Is you only need a few wrenches. 5/8, 9/16, 7/16, ½ inch. Those 4 wrenches will basically rip apart this entire engine. You also need a 3/8, of course, but that's really all you need. Just very basic tools. Also have to loosen up the coil here, just the bracket, so we can get these last couple bolts out on the manifold. That's out of the way. That could just come right off, actually. Save that for later. All right, so that's all the bolts off the manifold. Pull that off, see what we got. Now we're definitely never going to use this intake manifold again, but I'll still keep it around just because. But if I can get under it, it might also be rusted shut. There we go. Yeah, there it is. Alrighty. Out with the old and in with nothing. Oh yeah. I always forget how heavy those are. Whoo, yeah, that's a problem. You know, these cork gaskets are at least 40 years old, and I'm probably going to reuse them. Probably good for another 40 years. All right, well, the cylinder heads are very easy. We're just going to hammer them all off with the Ooga Dooga wrench and see where we are. All right, so the cylinder head's off, and drum roll, it's pretty bad, but nothing a machine shop probably couldn't clean up. This one is definitely questionable, but again, as long as I can break the pistons free, it's fixable. Just the casting alone is significantly better, you know, compared to the 70s, 350s and whatnot. You could really tell that, you know, GM eventually started cheaping out on basically everything. Unfortunately, I cannot say the same for the cylinder head. That is definitely not, I don't want to say beyond repair, but it's not worth fixing. When you factor in that you can get a set of AFR 195 eliminators, which is their, you know, cheap version of the, you know, what would be proper 195s, but there's still a bunch of dynos out there that make serious power. And for what, not even $1,000 a set, you would spend way more at the machine shop trying to bring those heads back to life. So unfortunately, I don't know the fate of this engine yet, but at a minimum, those cylinder heads, done. But that being said, while I'm trying to stick with this theme, I'm going to peel off all these rockers and keep those too. One other thing I think worth noting when I'm taking this engine apart here is... Come on, pick it up. Let's go. It's a brand new phone. What the heck? There we go. You can't really see now I took the bolt out, but just a pile of metal piling up in the bottom corners. And that's a really famous spot when you do have an engine going bad on a small block Chevy, is it all gets piled up at the bottom corner of these bolt holes here on the cylinder head. All right, same thing on this side. We got the cylinder head off. It's really not that bad. It is, you know, again, very rusty. You could definitely, you know, pay to get this cleaned up, but it is cool because it's a 69 casting, but it's not camel humps. It's nothing special. It is a 64cc chamber, though. I ran the numbers, but it's just not worth fixing, unfortunately. And this side of the engine block is very similar to the other. We have one piston that is very crusty, but basically just rust down the holes and no holes in the piston, so that's a plus. So basically all I can do now is clean out these holes, vacuum them out, and now give it a 350 shot of penetrant, let it soak, and hope and pray that they're going to break loose. Well, I'm not going to say I'm not expecting it to, because it almost always does, but wish me luck. All right, that's all waxed on, and we'll let the science do its thing and see what happens. Hopefully the next video is of me pulling the pistons out of this thing and sending it off to the machine shop. We'll see. Knock on wood. Yeah, it's one of those moments.